Hello, my name is Maha and I'm here with Dr. Yin today. So, what drove you to the area of teaching Chinese to English speakers?
All right, yeah. Right now I'm a Chinese language teacher, but many years ago, and I was teaching English. And then I came to the United States for my graduate school, and then after I graduated from my graduate school, I got my master's degree, and I went back to China. I taught English back in China for about 4 years, and then decided to come back to the United States to get my doctorate degree. And my doctorate degree is actually on foreign language education. And at that time, I found that the way to teach Chinese is not really correct, because the Chinese language is different. It's a tonal language. It uses logographs, okay, in its writing system. So when you learn this language, okay, to be able to speak it will not help you to write it. To be able to write it will not help you to speak it.
So they're two very different things.
Right. You know, in English, okay, now if you learn to speak, you say hello, good morning, thank you, and the way you speak it, and then actually helps you to spell those words, right? But in Chinese, no. If you learned, okay, like hello, ni hao, all right, the way to write ni hao will not help you.
In pronouncing it.
Right.
It's very
So, but here, okay, I found in the United States, okay, at that time, okay, now, students learn to say hello and thank you, goodbye. They learn all these first, right? Then they were asked to write them down, and then they're completely different. I mean, you know, when you write ni hao, there's no way for you to know. Oh, you look at those words for ni hao, you don't know how to say them. So in other words, they do not help each other. So I think, okay, now, yeah, well, the way to teach Chinese should be different.
Do you feel that there is a direct connection between the nature of Chinese characters and the nature of the Chinese language?
Oh, yes. Okay, there are a lot of words in Chinese, all right, are monosyllabic. And Chinese characters, all right, and you learn Chinese characters, one character, one syllable. So there are a lot of words that are monosyllabic. In modern Chinese, there are a lot of disyllabic words now. But again, okay, now in these disyllabic Chinese words, all right, and you have two Chinese characters, and then each character contributes to the meaning of the whole word. So in other words, okay, when you learn Chinese, when you speak, all right, in English, okay, now you have words that has one syllable, two syllables, three syllables, right? If you say, okay, one word, for example, important, you have an important, kind of like 3 syllables, right? That's one word. But in Chinese, okay, now, if you have a word, like important, in Chinese we say 重要. It has 2 syllables, right? And then we have 2 characters. So one character, 1 syllable. So when you learn Chinese and then you see, oh, when you see 2 characters, you know there are 2 syllables. When you see a sentence that has 10 characters, you know there are 10 syllables.
So the syllables are directly connected to the amount of characters used.
Right, right. But of course, there is a one character, okay? It's a retroflex R in Chinese. It's a one character, and it's usually attached to another word. For example, if you say to play, and then you can say war, all right? And that sounds like a one syllable, right? That should be one character. But since you have that retroflex sound R there, so there is a Chinese character for that retroflex R. So when you say war, which means to have fun, to play, there are two characters. That's an exception, the only exception. Otherwise, okay, one character, one syllable, or one syllable, one character.
That's very interesting.
And also, okay, I want to point out, okay, there are so many different dialects in China. So if you say something, okay, in one way, okay, people in another place can say it quite differently in terms of pronunciation. But Chinese characters, okay, would always mean the same thing. No matter how you pronounce them, they mean the same thing. So it's kind of like a rose is a rose is a rose, no matter what you call it. So that Chinese character there, the meaning is there, all right? No matter how you pronounce it, the meaning is there.
You get the point across.
Right.
When learners of Chinese first begin studying the language, do you advise them to study the characters as well, or just that pinyin is sufficient in the early stages?
Well, pinyin helps learners to learn how to pronounce Chinese sounds. But there are so many homophones in Chinese. If you just say yi, well, it can mean number one. It can also mean jacket or medical. Or it can mean to rely on. Well, you can go on and on. There are like more than 30 different meanings for just E.
That's very interesting.
And then how do you distinguish them? Like in English, for example, this example may help you to understand. If I say right, which right you're talking about? To write, or the ceremony right, or correct, right.
Am I right or left?
Or right or left, or right. Yeah. In English, you just have that one word, okay, right? But in Chinese, there's so many words okay, that they sound the same.
Context clues play a big role, and I assume.
Correct. Context can help. But sometimes, okay, context may not help.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you just say that one word, and then you have to, ask, okay, the speaker, say, what do you mean? And they have to provide you with the context. That's kind of troublesome, right? And then if you have the Chinese characters there, then you know.
Oh,
Right.
that
So
works out.
right. So like in English, we say right. Okay. Well, we're right. Okay. But if okay, the word is spelled there. Okay. You don't need context. You know what it means. Well, maybe for right. Okay. Do you mean correct or right hand? Right.
They're spelled the same in English
right?
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For Chinese, yeah. I mean, you need to learn the Chinese characters to distinguish the different meanings. Okay. So I think, okay, yeah, it's possible for beginners, for learners at the beginning stage to learn Chinese characters, even without being able to speak the language, because they're just, okay, symbols, and they do not actually represent sounds, they represent
Yes.
meanings.
So it's more memorization then.
Right, yeah, and you have to memorize those words. But anything, okay, you have to memorize it. Even okay, like in English, okay, now you have a lot of words, you still have to memorize them. You have to associate, okay, the sounds with meaning. In Chinese, yeah, you try to memorize, okay, the characters. You associate, okay, the shapes of the characters with meanings.
Do you think Chinese characters have historically facilitated positive intercultural communication among the people in surrounding countries such as Korea and Japan?
Definitely, yeah. And well, I think the Chinese language, Chinese characters, and writing system, okay, contributed to the intercultural communications positively. people in Japan and Korea learned a lot about China and Chinese civilization through books written in Chinese. And also later on, okay, Chinese people also learned from Japan, okay, through Chinese characters. For example, the English word philosophy, okay, is 哲学. I have no way to write it. Okay, now if I write it up. Okay, yeah, actually that's the word. Okay, the Chinese people learned from Japan. So actually, okay, this intercultural, intercultural communications, okay, through Chinese characters, have helped, okay, peoples of different countries to advance their own culture.
So language being part of the culture, that's one of the things that was blended as communication increased between the two countries.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
So do you see Chinese characters changing with time, once again, as it did in history?
Oh, yeah. It's been changing, and well, one big change, okay, took place in 1950s. At that time, a lot of characters that had been used by people, among people, were first recognized officially. Those characters were simplified, and so that's actually a big change at that time. And because of the different writing tools that people use, okay, characters, okay, have been changing. You know, Chinese people used to, okay, use brush pen. Okay, now we use, okay, hard pen, and now we're beginning to use keyboard a lot. So so characters have been changing. The writing system has been changing, but
simply changing the utensil you write with changes the characters themselves?
The characters themselves, you know, like when technology science developed, okay, and we need new words, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and then so new words, okay, have to be created. I mean, new characters have to be created. And, but you know, the writing system, okay, cannot change drastically, okay, all the time. It has to be stable because the people have to use the system to communicate.
So the baseline would stay the same, but there would be additions as new words are created.
Right, and also as I mentioned, writing tools are different, okay, and then people simply do not have as much time to write Chinese characters with brush pens, and they use hard pens to write, and then they can write, okay, a character, okay, one stroke after another. They can also write cursively, and then they do not want, okay, too many strokes in there, and then simplify some characters, reduce the number of strokes.
But it's still legible.
Yes, it is still legible. So I see okay, the changes, but you know, the change, as I mentioned, in 1950s, that's a big change actually after the Chinese characters had been used for 2,000 years. So another big change is like 2,000 years ago in the Qing dynasty and Han dynasty in China.
It must have been a big point in history then for the culture.
Yes, yeah. So the change in the 1950s, okay, now has many reasons. The tools, writing was different, and also the need for education, right? And to get rid of illiteracy is another reason for the simplification of Chinese characters at that time. But not all Chinese characters were simplified, because some characters okay, are already simplified, simple enough. You don't need to simplify them anymore, right? For example, person, there are only 2 strokes. Okay, you just read 2 strokes. 2 strokes, too simple. How can you simplify it? Yeah, you don't need, only, okay, those characters that have so many strokes, okay, are simplified.
Thank you, Dr. Yin, for coming with us today, and we hope to see you again at Stony Brook.
Thank you very much, and I'm honored to be invited to give a lecture on Chinese characters here at Stony Brook, and I hope that my lecture will help, okay, students to be more interested in Chinese characters and learn Chinese characters well. Thank you.